So if you're not in love with your business, that's a big deficit, but it sure as heck is an asset if you use it well, right? But it does need to be mixed with a couple of things, right? And those things are a proper strategy, meaning you know who you're serving and you know where they are and you know what they need to hear. Hello, amazing humans, and welcome to episode number 297 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. So, there's a lot of entrepreneur porn out there, yeah? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. The reason I call it that, it's so gross, I know, but the reason I call it that is because you know it when you see it, which according to the Supreme Court is the definition, yeah? So you know it when you see it. And it looks a little something like this. I made $1 million 20 minutes before breakfast, right? Or someone's like putting on an apron or baking cookies and they're like, I made $1 million last night while I slept. Now, they might be telling the truth. They might, I don't know. We're not behind their business. We have no freaking idea, right? But it makes for some good reels, yeah? But it's entrepreneur porn. Let's call it what it is. Is it real? I don't know. Does it resemble what it's supposed to resemble? Maybe. We don't know, right? There's lights, there's cameras, right? It's just like the real thing. We're like, what's real? What's not? I don't know. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. And it can get really, really confusing, especially if you're starting out in a business or if you're hitting a plateau in your business and you're like, what in the actual F is happening, right? Has this been a fluke so far? Am I crazy? Right? Do I have to shove myself into someone else's funnel structure to make this thing work? Right? All of these things start to come up when we bump into entrepreneur porn. And so in this episode, I want to hold your hand in your heart just a little tiny bit to let you know, yes, you can make money doing what you love. That's a real thing, but it doesn't come without growth. Now I'm talking about your growth. Now, it's not like this is a magical woo-woo episode. We're not talking about that kind of growth, but you have to grow as a human and consistently look at strategy. And in order to understand what strategies are going to work, you have to try them. That's the thing, right? You've got to have the courage to iterate, the courage to keep trying, the courage to send out one more email, to do one more post, to figure out what's happening, and then go back to the drawing board if you need to. But is it possible? Of course it is. Think about all the things and all the infomercials that we've ever seen, all of us, that have sold. Why did they sell? What the hell happened there? They created a need. They understood what was happening in the market and they answered it. Some of them are silly. Some of them are profoundly useful. So in this episode, I've got your back and we're going to talk about some steps you can take if you are feeling like you're not sure you can consistently and sustainably make money doing what you love. So pop in those earphones and let's get to it. All right. So let's say you are loving your business or you've just started, you've had some success already, you're really excited about how it's going, or you've hit that plateau, the dreaded plateau we all talk about, all of us coaches, but there's a reason we all talk about it because it's when a lot of people quit. So it's either you're starting, you're vamping up, you're like, oh my God, this is really great. And then things start to stall. Or you are a little bit further down and then things start to stall. You noticing a pattern? Okay. Things start to stall, not because you're doing what you love and you're like some frou-frou fluffy person, or you're flaky, or you're so cute with your little hobby. Oh, no, that's not what's going on. That's some BS, right? That is some patriarchal nonsense. Of course, you can make money doing what you love, right? But there are combos of things that need to be in place. I mentioned in the intro that strategy is one of them. That is absolutely true because you can have all the love and the joy for your work, which, by the way, is the secret sauce to sales. Sales is just a transfer of enthusiasm, people. That's all it is. It goes from Jimmy Choo making the shoe to me buying the shoe and going, dang, that's gorgeous, right? Transfer of enthusiasm. That's what sales is. So if you're not in love with your business, that's a big deficit. But it sure as heck is an asset if you use it well, right? But it does need to be mixed with a couple of things, right? And those things are a proper strategy, meaning you know who you're serving and you know where they are and you know what they need to hear, right? You just have to have that. You've also got to have structure. Who's answering your customer service emails? What kind of email system are you using? Who's got your website? What's going on there? And then the last one is clarity. If you are not clear, none of this matters. Okay? It just doesn't. So having all the joy and love and oh my God, it's so great. And I'm just doing my thing. You have no idea who you're serving or what the packages look like or how you're going to get things in people's hands. People don't know what you do. They aren't clear on how they can work with you. And they sure as heck don't know how to pay you. All that love and excitement can start to dissipate a little bit. And that's kind of a bump in the road that a lot of people hit. And by the way, those who have been in business for a while and hit a plateau, that's what's happening, right? Is that you have grown, the business has grown, and you have not changed the strategy, you haven't changed the structure, and you haven't gotten clear on what's going to happen next. You're relying on what's in the rearview mirror. You're not looking forward. It's exactly the same when you start. You're happy, woohoo, woohoo. But if you don't have a strategy and you don't have structure and you don't have clarity, it can't go anywhere. I mean, those are really basic things, right? You have to understand how to do those basics. This is what I do. This is the gap you have. This is how I fill it. And I'm the perfect person to fill it because of XYZ. Here's how you pay me, right? Those things have to be there. Like, let's be realistic. You can sit on your couch and meditate all you want without action and structure and clarity and strategy. It's just not going to happen, right? So let's just be super honest about that. And then the other issue is clarity and structure and strategy without love and joy, recipe for burnout. You noticing? We need all of these things. That's when people say, can I really make a living doing what I love? I'm like, oh my God, yes, of course you can. But you got to learn a couple things. That's okay. You can, like, my very first boss, right? When I was working at a startup, he had his favorite phrase. He's like, let's jump off the cliff and then build the plane on the way down. Not always relaxing, not always easy, but it was a really fun strategy for him, right? He loved that, made him thrive because he had to think on the fly and get things working and experiment and try. And it was just the way that he loved to run business. It's not my specific way to love business. But what I want you to understand is if you at least start taking those steps towards the cliff and you're starting to put stuff together, you're going to be a lot better off than someone who sits back and just looks at things and wonders what might happen. You've got to get out there and start trying things. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. And then the other thing I want you to understand inside of the love, clarity, strategy, and structure conversation is your own nervous system. Now, some of you know I've added a nervous system coach to the Abundance Academy. That's how important your nervous system feeling safe actually is. Because you can't expand your business without your nervous system being safe. It's not a thing. Can't do it. I don't care what anybody tells you. You will earn at the speed of safety. There's no way around that. All right. And by the way, when you start to burn out, right? Like if there's structure and clarity and systems and all that's put in place and some strategy, but there is no joy and you're starting to burn out, your nervous system will backfire against you to protect you, to keep you safe. It will burn you out to the point you cannot either function or continue the way that you have been. It will get your attention until you stop and listen. So you need to understand, all of these ingredients of your business go in to make the soup of your business, right? So you ever made a good soup? Oh, I love soup. Oh my God. I make a cream of mushroom that is to die for, but that's another episode. Anyway, here's the deal. If you are looking at your business like a soup, you have to know what spices to put in. You have to know how long to marinate certain things and not marinate others, right? Because it'll ruin the soup or it'll overpower or vegetables will get soggy. Pick a thing. You have to understand how these ingredients work together, and you have to understand what happens when one of them is missing. Because if you don't know that about your business, you can kind of turn your soup sour and not know why. Or it gets kind of thick and sludgy, and you're like, what? This is supposed to be smooth and light, right? That analogy really does work for business. You've got to look at all of the different aspects in order to make it function properly. But can you do it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Think of all of the incredible businesses you know that were started because somebody tried something different. They tried a hamburger a different way. They added a different sauce. They made muffins with a little bit of a twist that you weren't expecting. It's the coach who mixes a lot of psychology in and also business strategy, right? It's also the fitness trainer who checks in on what you're eating and how you're feeling throughout the day so they can adjust things to support you even better. There's a soup here that you're making, and you need to know all the ingredients and you need to know how they work together. But I will tell you the basic structure of any soup is your love and joy, right? Doing something you really love, that you're engaged with, that you're passionate about, right? That you really, really love, that you know is kind of like your agreement with the universe to be here. You know that one? That one? Yeah, right? So you've got to have that. You've got to have a strategy, right? About how it's going to make money, how that money is going to come into your life, what you're going to do with it while it's here. What does the business need? You need a structure, and that includes technological structures. It includes human structure. When you're just starting out, that's you. Oh my gosh, been there, done that, right? That's a structure. And then you've got to have clarity. You've got to know where you're going, what you're charging, how much profit you're making, and why this matters to you. Yeah? Okay. So the answer is yes, you can make a living doing what you love, but you do need to know what the ingredients are. All right, now that we have that out of the way, there's one more lie out there we need to talk about. And this is the idea you can do what you love or you can make money. No, false. You can do both. That's not a thing. But you might find out you're starting to flub sales or you are starting to pull back a little bit. So let's talk about what's happening there. Yeah, there is one more ingredient in our soup I want to talk about, and it gets kind of its own section here in this podcast episode because it's that important, and that is trust. Okay, so joy can be the fuel for profit, like we've been saying, right? You have the structure, the strategy around it, but joy is kind of the fuel. It really is. And then when you start to pull back on sales or you start tweaking in things that don't need to be tweaking because they're working, right? And you start to sabotage them in one way or the other, maybe you let your health get off track. Maybe you don't do what you said you were going to do. You're not keeping your appointments with yourself, or you have a funnel that's working beautifully and you start futzing with it, something like that, right? And you're like, what did I do that for? Oh my God, right? And you can try to put it back, sure, but it's like, what did I do that for? When that's happening, that is all about trust. Now, your nervous system will come in, as I said, and it will start to try to like pull you back a little bit to keep you safe. It just will. That's kind of its job. But inside of that, your ability to trust yourself will fuel how quickly your nervous system contracts and shuts you down or feels safe and lets you continue to explore. And here's the truth about that, okay, is that a selling problem is actually a safety problem, right? Like that, when you start to run into that, it's not a strategy problem as much when you're pulling back, actually, it's really a safety problem. And so as you continue to build your own self-trust, you might be like, but Sarah, how do I do that? I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. But you've got to kind of build this foundation of trust for yourself to know you're never going to let yourself down. You're never going to let yourself get to the point that you are exhausted and burned out and like everything's falling apart, or someone calls you a fraud, or you're so worried about what people think, right? So all of that is going to come down to self-trust. And that self-trust is really fueled by how much joy you're feeling, right? Because the more joyful we are, the safer we feel, right? When you're out having fun, you're not always like, oh my God, it's not. It's like you're enjoying. When you're really in the flow, you felt this, you know what I'm talking about. When you're in the flow of writing and like expressing yourself and having fun, it's the best. And you feel safe. And that's why it works so well. So if you're noticing a sales problem, it's actually a safety problem. And that is so important for you to remember. As you start making money doing what you love, if you find there's a hiccup, check in and see where you don't feel safe and look at where you don't trust yourself to either handle the money coming in or to handle the clients, or you've got some odd codependent relationship with your clients, like, oh my God, they gave me money, now I owe them my kidney, like something like that going on, as opposed to like, no, they're adults who decided to work with you. Look at those. Look at your own level of safety and look about how much you trust yourself to keep going. Now, one of the ways that we can do this, I promised you a little bit of strategy, right? I always give you strategy, is you need to look for leaks. You need to look for leaks in your energy and leaks in your safety. So what the hell am I talking about? I'm talking about you doing things over and over that used to work, but they're not working anymore. But you just keep doing them over and over and over because they worked one time. Nope. You have to keep growing with your business. You have to keep growing with what's happening in the marketplace. You're a CEO now. If you're going to make money doing what you love, you might be able to be hired by a corporation, but I'll tell you, it's much faster for you to go that pathway through owning your own business. Like it just is. But with that growth is going to come change. Of course, right? You're going to change and grow. What you want is going to change. The profitability is going to change. The market's going to be like, of course. And so energy leaks come from this like grip that we get, which by the way, repels money. But this grip that we get on like, it's been working this way, we must keep going. That's how you get into trouble. And one of the examples that we can see out there in the world is like Blockbuster. Do you guys remember Blockbuster, right? And I know this gets used all the time, but just think about it. Just put yourself in the shoes of that experience. Blockbuster's been around forever. Flip, it was in a Friends episode, for crying out Christmas, right? Like it was just around. It's what we did on Friday night. Like, oh my God. And then Netflix flipped that on its head and Blockbuster didn't pay attention. Same happened with music. Yeah, you remember music, record deals, all that stuff. It was flipped on its head when Apple created iTunes and those little AirPods, not AirPods, sorry, the little iPods we used to carry around all the time. Remember those? God, they were humongous, those first ones. Yeah, really thick, heavy. Yeah, but the music industry didn't pay attention. The publishing industry is another one. The market started to flip. There was self-publishing. Amazon was changing things. People could produce their own stuff. And these massive publishing companies didn't go with it. And now you don't quote unquote need them, right? You, as the CEO, you can see those examples now and go, what? How did that happen? Energy leaks. It happens when someone is fighting, like, no, this is the way it is. The first time people really started to understand, like Swiss Army watches, you remember these? Like they were like going by themselves. You didn't have to wind them. Watchmakers were like, that's not a watch. A watch has cogs and wheels and it's complicated and you have to grind. That's not a watch. That's not a phone, that iPhone. You have to be able to look beyond what's worked for you all this time and watch what's happening and step into the truth of where we actually are. And that's how you can continue to feel the joy and be doing something you love without leaking massive amounts of energy by gripping on to what you wish was happening, to what you wish was working, to what happened, even last year. This is a tough time for online businesses. It's like, whoa, this is moving fast. It is. Pay attention to that. That's how you protect yourself from energy leaks. It's also how you tell your nervous system that you are safe and that you can continue to expand and that you can to continue to grow, because that kind of gripping is exhausting and it really does repel financial success. If you really look at people who are financially successful, they almost stop caring about the money, right? I always joke about succession. They're like, whatever, we're not getting rid of the PJs, the private jets, right? They don't even care anymore. They're like, whatever, I'll give you $1 million to make this hit, right? I mean, it's like, what? They don't even care, right? Because money doesn't respond to grip, it responds to flow. And in order to stay in that flow, you need to be willing to release old patterns that aren't working anymore, to let go of who you were in the past when you launched the business, when you first started, when things worked a certain way. You have to be malleable to that and honor what you love, honor the joy. And you do that by being the CEO who pays attention to what's happening so you don't find yourself in a blockbuster moment, right? You don't find yourself in a music industry moment. You need to be aware of what's happening. I hope that makes sense. We just want to wrap up this episode reminding you to pay attention to what feels good. And I'm not talking about laying on the couch watching Netflix. Okay. I'm talking about in your business. When you're really aligned with what you're here to do, you kind of want to show up. You know what I mean? It's scary. It's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little bit of a stretch, but you want to show up inside your business. You want to do what you love. And listen, you're in your business all day, every day. You got to show up, do your thing. Make it something you love. Why wouldn't you make it something you love? One of the biggest regrets of the dying is that they spent so much time at the office. This has been documented for decades now. Don't let that be you. You don't have to hustle to make money. You've got to be smart to make money. And I don't mean smart, book smart. I mean smart as in you understand what makes you tick. Smart as in knowing who your customer is. Smart as in using structures that support you so you can take time off and be with your family. Smart as in you make a podcast or a video podcast, right? You might be watching this or listening to this while I am actually making cookies with my kids. I don't know. I can't see you, but you are enjoying this right now because I created it. That is smart creation. I hope it serves you to the high heavens. And I hope I am making cookies with the kids. That sounds like a lot of fun right now. All right. This is about using your gifts and talents to be wise and smart and stay ahead of the market in a way that's playful to you, in a way that's fun and doesn't have you gripping onto results that maybe don't match you anymore, or gripping onto this desire to make money, this have to. Get back to the joy, allow the structure, allow the strategy, and allow the clarity and the safety and your own trust to support you on this journey. This is not a one fix wonder. This is not a one ingredient soup. There's a lot that goes into making your business successful and making you successful at the same time. Yeah. And it's all here. It's all here. This is possible. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I've got your back. A lot of people have got your back. This is doable. You've watched people do it. You know you have a desire to have your business based on what you love. You have that desire so that you will fulfill on it. Yeah, we know this. All right. Listen, beautiful humans. If this spoke to you and you're like, I'm picking up what she's laying down, I want you to consider coming to work with me. I want you to consider the Abundance Academy. We are having so much fun in there, and we are really helping people grow and hit some of these financial numbers that have felt elusive before. We're doing it by keeping them in alignment. We're doing it through strategy and structure, of course. And we're also doing it through working through that lens of joy and love and happiness to keep the business very profitable. Whatever your business is, we can make it more profitable and we can get you to your goals faster. But it is very, very challenging to do it alone. The link to the Abundance Academy is underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube, or it's in your show notes if you're listening in. I want you to take a minute and really ask yourself if this is going to be the year you actually start making money doing what you love. I'll see you in the next episode.